Meanwhile, Israel keeps pushing back its threat to invade Rafah with growing skepticism on whether it eventually will. Haisam Hassanein is with us now to talk about this. Good evening to you.
Thanks for having me, Jacob.
In your assessment, where are we now on the hostage negotiations between the United States, Qatar, Egypt, Israel, and Hamas?
Unfortunately, there is no foreseen progress yet. The Cairo and Doha talks did not lead to anything. Both Egypt and Qatar cannot control Hamas. And instead, Hamas, yesterday, its leaders went to visit Tehran. It was like telling both the Arab mediators, the Egyptians and the Qataris, that they have another regional ally who will give them more options on the negotiation table. Apparently, Hamas seems to care about one thing: survive the current war, declare victory, even if this will come at the expense of Gazan civilians and Israeli hostages.
Israeli government claims that Hamas holds Rafah, and the only way to fight it is to go in. Is there any understanding of that in Egypt, in your mind?
At the beginning of the conflict, Cairo didn't believe that Israel could take care or get rid of Hamas. President Sisi famously said that his government had a track record in dealing with militia groups, and it took years to get rid of them. Over time, this started to change, and we start to see statements coming from President Sisi himself calling for demilitarization of Gaza. His foreign minister, Sameh Shoukry, just a few months ago also responded to former Israeli minister Tzipi Livni, and he stated that Hamas is out of the Palestinian consensus, which means that Cairo started to see Israel doing progress inside Gaza, and Hamas is weak and irresponsible and has no place at the helm of Palestinian politics anymore. The big challenge for Egypt is they have three fears from any Rafah invasion. One, massive influx of displaced Palestinians into its borders, which brings troubling memories from 2008 when this happened. Such scenario, Egypt foresees that it will force its border security officials to use violence against the infiltrating Palestinians. And this will be very embarrassing for Egypt and the Arab world and internationally. What complicates the situation from the Egyptian perspective when it comes to this point, back in 2008, when Palestinians infiltrated the borders, it was due to economic boycott. Nowadays, so they basically went in to buy food and supplies and got back. Nowadays, Egypt foresees that there is nothing to do in Gaza and there is nowhere to live. So if they get into Egyptian territories, they wouldn't be going back. Two, Egypt is worried about Palestinian civilian casualties. It doesn't foresee that any Israeli operation in Rafah without leading to massive casualties. So it worries about. And number three, last point is an Israeli ground presence in Rafah means that more information will be released on hidden tunnels and other secrets that led to the massive militarization of Gaza. Obviously, since it came from the Egyptian side of the border, this is likely to be very embarrassing. And this is why Egypt would rather have a ceasefire right away in order to avoid any complications of an Israeli inside Rafah.
Is Egypt committed not to allow Hamas to go back into power in Gaza?
I would argue that, as I argued earlier, at the beginning, this was not the situation because they did not share the belief that the group could be taken out of power or a regime change could happen. But seemingly, as Israel started to progress from one town to another inside Gaza, Egypt started to see that Israel has a strong foothold inside the Strip, and Hamas is not as powerful as depicted itself. And you could see that through the official statements that have been coming from Egyptian officials and warning Israel from intervening. It changed to the demilitarization. Hamas is out of the political consensus. The Egyptians are trying to find alternative solutions to bring the Palestinian Authority into Gaza. So nowadays, I would argue that they started to believe that Hamas cannot be at the helm of Palestinian politics.
All right. Haisam Hassanein, thank you very much for that.
Thanks for having me.